Ninja Lens.
Konnichiwa, ninjas. It's me, Ninja Lens, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. For over a year, I've been wanting to do a review of the show Steven Universe. But the video idea in my head keeps getting bigger and bigger, to the point where, for me to do the video right, it would take me forever. And I want to talk about the show right now. And I decided to do something a little bit easier and a little bit smaller over here on the second channel. So what I'm going to do is, I'm watching the show over for the umpteenth time. I can't even remember how many times I've watched the show completely over and over again. So I'm rewatching the series right now. And after every single episode, I'm going to stop and do a little review here and talk about the specific episode. That way I can talk about Steven Universe in a more off the top of my head, but also I get the long series notes. So without further ado, I present to you Gemglow, the series premiere. So talking about this episode, I think it's important to point out that the show begins, the series premieres at the Big Donut. Probably one of my favorite locations outside of the house and the car wash. I don't know, it's kind of hard to decide. I don't want to look too far into the future, but I really like this opening because this is where Steven hangs out. The first characters we meet are Sadie and Lars, which is kind of weird with their ancillary characters. I don't know, I guess maybe they're secondary, tertiary characters. I'm not 100% sure what you'd consider them. We meet them first. So overall, I know I started where we started, but overall, this episode, I like to lead into it by saying it does a very good job of introducing us to the core characters. So we meet Steven right away. He's at the Big Donut. I think that says a lot about his character. He likes hanging out at the Big Donut. He's very saddened he's a very emotional young man. He's saddened by the fact that they don't have cookie cats.
They stopped making cookie cats. They're only the most scrumptious and delicious ice cream sandwich ever made. Don't they have...
Yes, you can point out the fact that Cookie Cat constantly has foreshadowing into the series. I don't really think that's very important to mention right now. So he takes the freezer home and we meet the gems. Now, this is probably some of the I actually really like the action. I'm very interested in talking about action specifically. Where we meet the gems, they do specific actions that introduce us to their fighting style, a little bit of their character, and obviously what they look like.
That's Steven.
It's very good choreographed action. I actually think it's the best choreographed action in the episode where we meet the gems. Now, we don't get too much about them until after the fighting is over. They mention gem. We don't know what that means. It gets the idea of a gem. Once again, this is a very brilliant first episode. It gets the idea of a gem in your head. What is the gem? It's kind of introduced when he says magic belly button and he's pulls up his shirt and we see something that's not a belly button. It is a gemstone. People don't have that. That is very interesting. Then we move on to the first time that Amethyst mentions it. She says, these things don't have gems. That must mean that there's a mother. Another, gem. Think about that word. Think about that word. Then when the fighting is over, we have a sit down with all of them. This is where we really start getting introduced to the dynamic of all the characters, how they all interact with each other. Amethyst gets on Pearl's nerve. Garnet sits in the corner, doling out little droplets of wisdom. Very good introduction to how the characters interact. Then we get an introduction to what is this magic? Steven has magic. That's very good. Early on in the episode, Steven has magic. We know, we have a good idea of what's going on. Then we talk to the gems, and it's a very good introduction to the individual characters. Amethyst is kind of a slacker, a goofball. Slacker and a goofball and a little inconsiderate because she slices the dumpster in half. Poor Lars has to clean all that up. Then we get introduced to first we get introduced to Pearl, but I don't want to do little each scene by scene analysis, but we get introduced to all the characters and it's a very good introduction because they kind of describe themselves. And it's really interesting because it's not just hi, I'm character A, this is how I am, like some shows do. I feel like this is a really interesting first episode. It does a very good job introducing us to all the characters, the themes, and all of the storylines that are going to be like it gets you into the ideas of the show. It introduces you to all the things you need to know, almost all of them. I feel like it falls short in a few aspects compared to the next episode, which we're going to be talking about in the next video, but I feel like it doesn't have it doesn't go too deep. It just is like surface level, and that's fine. That's actually really good. It's an amazing first episode, but it could have been a little better, and I guess maybe I'm not 100% sure how to count how, the next episode was supposed to be paired with it, but I don't think it's fair to count them in pairs in the same way that just because they aired paired together doesn't mean everybody watches them paired together. They often sell episodes as pairs. I don't know. In general, I'm going to be talking about these 11-minute episodes. Unless were specifically one episode, I'm going to be talking about them as individuals. I feel like it falls short in a few aspects that the next episode picks up on amazingly, and that's what we're going to talk about next. A big shortcoming is that the bulk of this episode is not very exciting. The big action scene is incredibly weak compared to the rest of the show. I know that this show isn't the best action, isn't technically considered an action show. I think it's has really good action a lot of times. And the big fight with the centipedal was incredibly weak. The gems with their superpowers are hiding behind a rock. Even when it's not spitting acid, it's sitting there chomping. I understand it's to give Steven a chance to shine. The gems kind of have to be losers sitting here behind the rock for no reason. But I feel like it still could have had a little more interesting action. The gems just kind of sit there, then Steven saves the day by swinging a refrigerator at them. There could have been a little bit more action, but the fact that it's the first episode and it does a really good job introducing everything, it still has good action. It has really good. It's a very good episode. It's a very good introduction. On a rewatching, I recommend rewatching it, and I think it's the perfect episode to introduce the series to. I mean, there are certain shows that have better episodes to introduce the series to later on, and I think this one does it perfectly. I think it's a wonderful introduction to the series. If you're showing it to them, I don't think you need to do anything to show anybody the series. Just make sure they start it from the beginning. And with that, I give you Gem Glow. Join us next episode when we are reviewing Laser Light Cannon.